Well, we got here. Welcome to Baron's Den for the final roster change video, as the only roster we've got left are vampires. Now, I realise I haven't done Bretonians. I am going to have a look at the Bretonians, but because we're not comparing them to their old version, because it's a completely different team, it won't be so much roster changes other than just having a look at that team. So the last roster change video will be the vampires. And again, a bit like the Chaos Dwarves, there shouldn't be too much change from the vampires because they were one of the last teams to drop in Season 2. So there's not too much change expected for the good old vampires. They were very powerful in the last edition. You saw vampires shot up from being a lower tier 2 team to a tier 1 team, really. So this was an opportunity to maybe nerf them back into line a bit, but we'll see if that opportunity was taken. So first of all, Thrall linemen are exactly as they were. Movement 6, Strength 3, Edge 3+, Passing 4+, Armour 8+, cost 40,000. General access on primary and agility in secondary. Agility secondary, strength secondary. I'm always saying agility in secondary. So, you know what I was saying before about the Hobgoblin? This guy's basically a Hobgoblin, but with general instead of devious. And in that respect, it might make him a bit more of an effective player. But we all know that Thrall is here to be a blood bag to the vampires, to keep that team cooking. And then anything else they can get will benefit the team, but you really don't want to be levelling up the Thralls too much. That's the job of the vampires, is to be the beating heart of the team. These are just filling out your team, keeping your vampires running, and then if they can chip in here and there, then they will. So no change there. The Vampire Runner, a very popular player, now that it can move 8. It's a shame to lose a bit of strength, so when comparing to the PDF version, before they had their Season 2 update, you'd have had 6 strength for vampires. Now you've only got 4, if you decide to field them all, because the vampires are only strength 3, but they are movement 8, which really does give you some ability. It also helps you to get that hypno gaze around the pitch. So movement 8, strength 3, edge 2+, passing's now 3+, so the Vampire Runner, she's not a bad little passer. She's as good at passing as your human thrower. Armour 8+, 100,000, which was the same. General and agility, but passing and strength on secondary. And she's got Bloodlust 2+. So you have to roll a 2+ every time you activate her. Otherwise, she either will become distracted or need to feed on a Thrall. She's got regeneration, which we know. The other one is she's got Hypno Gaze, which means she can run up to a player and try and take away their tackle zones, basically, make them become distracted. And she does that by a roll of a 3+ now. So there is a nerf here. I didn't put it in red because it's not really a nerf to the vampires as such. It's a changing of the skill. And it's not necessarily a nerf. Before, it ran on their agility, which meant that an agility 2+ vampire was able to hypnogaze people on a 2+, which was really useful. Now it's on a 3+. And whilst that sounds like it's a nerf, it's not done on agility anymore. It's just a straight 3+. So if you're often when I've been playing vampires, there's been times where I've wanted a hypnogaze, but I knew that would involve running into several tackle zones. And every tackle zone you were in, extra tackle zone, was a minus to your hypnogaze. So whilst their raw hypnogaze ability was a 2+, if you were in 1 or 2 tackle zones, it could drop to a 3 or even a 4+. So actually a flat 3+ probably means that the lion's share of their hypnogazes are worse, but you might get a crucial one that would have been a 4 or even a 5+ before that's now going to be a flat 3+ as well. So it probably is a slight nerf overall, because I think your vampire blitzers, for example, which also have to activate on a bloodlust of a 3+, there's just a little bit more room for failure now. But there's going to be times where that flat 3+ is really useful. So that's the Vampire Runner. Teeny tiny buff, I'd say, but only teeny tiny. The Vampire Thrower is exactly as they were. They're still my favourite player on the team, and probably the player that's the most like the Vampire from the previous editions of the game, because their stat line is movement 6, strength 4, agility 2+, armour 9+, which is exactly what your Vampire would have been in the previous edition of the game. But they have got passing 2+, because they're throwers. They've got access to general, agility and passing. Strength on secondary, they're 110k. They've got their Bloodlust 2+, Hypnogaze, regeneration and pass. So essentially it is the vampires of old with pass and a good passing stat. Love these players. I would always run to, always. And I develop them, even though they're throwers, I develop them like I've always developed in my vampires. Block, dodge. Of course, now I've got to think about the elite tax. It's going to affect some of these players, isn't it? Because you block and dodge are quite important to the vampire players. Oh, I'm so sorry about this picture. There isn't a decent shot of the Vampire Blitzer, so I had to zoom in and get this one, but yeah, not great. The Vampire Blitzer, a little bit different because this one is movement 6, strength 4, edge 2 plus. It's passing 4 plus now, which is a little bit better. Armor 9 plus, 110k again, and this time it's got agility, general, and strength on primary, and nothing on secondary. So you never need to worry about spending more star player points on secondary because you've got no access to anything. You're just doing it all on primary. It's got Bloodlust 3 plus. I think that's supposed to capture the idea that these blitzers are more out of control with their bloodlust, so it's more likely to fail. So you've got to be careful with them, but they've also got Hypnogaze, Regeneration, and Juggernaut, which makes them a little bit more reliable at blocking when it's part of a blitz. Now, these players are often favoured over the Vargeist because of their ability to Hypnogaze, but actually, I think Hypnogazing with the Vampire Blitzers is a bit more fraught now, because now it's a flat 3 plus. You've got to try and throw 2 3 pluses now. And you could find that that ends up eating through your reroll. So I don't know if that's as good as it used to be. But their passing has improved slightly, so they can pass in a pinch now. But overall, again, not much really has changed for the Blitzer. And then there's the Vargeist. I love the Vargeist. I will go into bat for the Vargeist any day of the week. I think most of the community would agree that it's a brilliant player, that it's just not needed by the team, or it's taking the slot of a player that you'd want more. But it is a hell of a big guy because it's movement 5, strength 5, agility 4 plus, passing 6 plus, armor 10 plus. So it's as armored as a troll. 150k, strength on primary, agility and general on secondary. It has got the Bloodlust 3 plus and it doesn't have Hypnogaze. And because it doesn't have Hypnogaze, people tend to ignore it, which I think is a real shame. Loner 4 plus, so it is unreliable. Regeneration, Claws and Frenzy. I say it's unreliable. It's unreliable with rerolls, but because Bloodlust can be mitigated more than other nega traits can, I've found the Vargeist can be quite reliable. And its claws means that it's a useful a weapon to have against higher armor teams. And I know vampires aren't about removal, but when there's more vampires players on the pitch and there are other players, it is very hard for that other team to combat their speed, their passing ability, their ability to switch off your tackle zones. And so by going players down, it just really magnifies the problem for you. So I'd never ignore the Vargeist. But in terms of has he got better, well, I suppose the tiniest bit, the fact that he can pass now, but you're probably never going to pass with him, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. 60k reroll still, which improved in the last edition of the game. They can have an Apo, which again they could in the last edition of the game, but that means that they've got regeneration on a lot of their players and an Apothecary, which is really useful. They've also got Masters of Undeath now, which, again, like I said in the Tomb King video, trying to explain that lore-wise can be a bit more hard, can be harder, but I suppose the idea is that you don't actually kill the player, you just feed on them perhaps, and then they just become enthralled to your vampires. This is how I'd look at it, I guess. And someone came up with a really good explanation for the Tomb King one as well, that it actually the soul of the dead player that you've killed is infused into a raised skeleton from a Tomb King army. So quite like that one as well. So maybe we can accept the Masters of Undeath being on more undead teams. Okay, so onto the pros and cons. Hypnogaze is a flat 3 plus. Is a pro, and also Hypnogaze is a flat 3 plus. It's a con. It depends on which way you look at it. For your easy ones, it's worse because you're never going to get it on a 2 plus anymore. But equally, when you've got to get your player into several tackle zones because you really want to Hypnogaze a specific player, that's going to be better because you can just do it on a 3 plus regardless of those tackle zones. So it very much depends on how you look at it. Secure the ball on 2 plus will allow you to actually ball carry with the thralls a bit easier, and that might be good because you can utilise your vampires elsewhere. And obviously, handing off to a vampire isn't too hard because you don't have to activate their bloodlust for that, and they're catching on a 2 plus. So it's not so bad having the ball on a thrall, even if you don't intend to score with them. And improved passing on some positionals makes them able to move the ball around a teeny tiny bit better, but again, they're not known for their passing, and I don't think they ever will be. I'm talking about the non-thrower, obviously. The thrower is very good passing. He's the top thrower, but I mean like your runner and stuff. There's no access to devious skills, so you're kind of guided out of the fouling meta somewhat. Obviously, you've got thralls and they're quite cheap, so you're still free to put the boot in. It's just you won't be getting dirty player or sneaky git. or any of the other ones. Put your boot in, lone fowler and such. The one thing I didn't mention in the con is elite tax. That's probably is going to hurt the team more than I first thought, because there was me saying, oh, I'd put block and dodge on my throw. Well, they're both elite skills. If you wanted guard on your blitzer, perhaps, that's an elite skill, or mighty blow. So they're not known for having a load of guard and mighty blow, because they're not that kind of a team. But you are going to want a lot of dodge and a lot of blocks, so elite tax will hurt them a little bit. But overall, I think they've stayed where they are. So I've popped the vampires here, right in the middle of things, really. I think they'll be fine in this edition of the game. They're already good, and I don't think they've gone backwards. And even if they have, it's only a margin. But I still expect them to do well in this edition of the game. So that's it. That is currently what my winners and losers look like. However, I am going to do a recap video, and we're going to move some teams around, I think. Now I've had a bit longer to reflect on it. And in that, I'm also going to be looking at... I'm not going to tier them, because I'm not qualified to do that. I'm not a tournament organiser, and there's people far more clued into Blood Bowl than I am that would tier them better. But I am going to put them into 5 categories, so I kind of am tiering them, I guess, but I'm not calling it tier 1, tier 2. I'm just roughly putting them into different groupings. And I'm going to do 3 or 4 to represent, depending on how certain teams do with their new skills. And also there's a cheeky community-based one at the end, which will be fun. I'll also be answering some questions regarding my thoughts on the new edition of the game as well, and how the rosters and rules have changed. So that will all be in the overview video that we'll do at the end. And then we'll also do Bretonnians, but we'll just look at them. We'll just have a look, see what they look like, see how we think they're going to perform. And then that's it. We're through the Season 3 preliminary stage, and we'll be looking forward to getting the actual box set and the rule book and seeing what's there. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. It would really help me out. And give the video a little like, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, thank you very much. Bye for now.